Hi, this is the Philosophical Angle, and I'm your host, Chris Angle. Along with me are my two co-hosts and guests, Remy Canario, a political analyst. Good to see you, Remy.
Nice to see you, Chris.
And Rick Samuelson. Rick is with us audio only, and Rick is a venture capitalist on the West Coast. Good to hear from you, Rick.
Good to hear from you.
Okay, to start, go ahead.
Hey,
Uh,
I get from Canada.
okay. The purpose of the Philosophical Angle is to discuss the concepts in current media. And today's is Planned Parenthood. That is predominantly concerned, or seems to be, with abortion, as it's prevalent in the news recently. And it seems that Planned Parenthood does early and late term and partial term abortions. In the news media, we've seen or heard about Planned Parenthood videos of the selling of the remains of aborted babies. On the Republican side, there have been objections and calls for defunding of Planned Parenthood for such coarse trafficking in human body parts. On the Democratic side, Hillary has said she supports Planned Parenthood, stating that, quote, if you are against Planned Parenthood, you are against women's health. Most countries throughout the world, and all but 7 of the states, plus Washington, D.C., permit abortion up to 18 to 25 weeks, after which it is not legal. The reasoning here is that at 6 months, premature babies can live outside the mother's body and or the baby can feel pain. Thus, at this point, the baby is a separate person. It is a human baby. This reasoning further concludes that up until the 18 to 25 weeks, that is from fertilization to about 25 weeks, the baby is still dependent on the mother and can live separately. Thus, it is not yet a separate entity. There is now a bill before Congress that is based on 20 weeks after fertilization. In the bill, there are exceptions for rape, incest, and endangerment to the mother's health. This should pass as it moves to bring the 7 states plus D.C. that remain outside the present state of state laws that do not permit abortion after the 18 to 25 week period. It is the position of the Philosophical Angle that in the 7 states that do not have any law for abortion, that since after 20 weeks, using the federal bill as a guideline, the baby has the potential to become a self-sustaining entity. Attorney generals from those states, or any state for that matter, should prosecute abortions as murder. As a second subject to be discussed today concerning Planned Parenthood, it should be defunded. Defunding it through the normal budgetary process will prove to be impossible, as such a budget will be vetoed by President Obama, who supports Planned Parenthood. When Congress cannot pass a budget, the current budget is extended into the next year. Thus, Planned Parenthood would continue to be funded. The only way for it to come up for defunding is the next time the debt ceiling needs to be raised, or at the time of a budgetary continuing resolution. I believe the next one is the debt ceiling issue this fall on October 1st, I believe. The Republicans would have to threaten what is known as a government shutdown. This would require, though, that the Republicans stand by their principles and stick to it. They would have to have enough guts to stick by their ethics. Do they have enough ethics and principles to stand by? Unfortunately, I doubt it, even if it is to save a life or more importantly, a baby's life. And the Democrats don't have any ethics at all. That's for sure. The only hope is with the conservative wing of the GOP. And by the way, I just used the word government shutdown. That is a misnomer. It doesn't really shut down. It just has to operate on the money it gets every day from the taxpayers, which is plenty. Lastly, the third subject for discussion today on Planned Parenthood is, should tax dollars be used for the abortion operations of Planned Parenthood or anything like Planned Parenthood? Should tax dollars be used for abortion at all? The Supreme Court of the United States established that abortion is permissible, but should the abortions of any type or at any time be supported by the U.S. tax? Should they be supported by the U.S. tax dollar? The answer, of course, is no. There is no provision in the Constitution for it, and thus it is illegal. It certainly cannot fit into the general welfare clause of the U.S. Constitution, because it does not qualify as welfare for anybody, especially since it is committed to the destruction of independent human life after the 20 to 25 week period. And it is aimed at the destruction of potential human life in the first 20 to 25 weeks. Well, enough said on my part. Guys, what do you think on any of those subjects regarding Planned Parenthood? Remy, I'm going to...
question of ethics, and I'd like to counter with an ethic of my own, and an ethic that I think is really critical to what it means to be an American, and that's tolerance. Now, you may believe that something with the potential to become a human being is a human being. I happen not to agree, and there is nothing that you're going to say that's going to convince you, and there's nothing I'm going to say that's going to convince. There's nothing you're going to say that's going to convince me at all.
Got it.
So, what does this leave us? This leaves us with a moral question. You might even call it a religious question. The very kinds of questions that this country was founded as a haven for those who had different opinions. Now, in these situations where there can be no logical explanation, no final answer provided by science, we must respect the rights of United States citizens to have different beliefs, and it is impermissible to use the rule of law to force the will of a majority over an unwilling minority, if that's the case.
Okay. Rick?
Well, I mean, there may be a logical inconsistency there. I mean, if a minority of us want to go out and murder others, then you could argue that on the basis of that logic that we
that's a pretty simple argument right there. Clearly, there is a difference that's being argued from my side. I'd say that people who believe in abortion generally don't support allowing murder.
Okay, but I think the most damning, shifting to a slightly different approach to this, and focusing on the fate of Planned Parenthood itself, I think that's the most easily defined issue here in a much broader question. The most damning evidence that I've read of so far amongst these various tapes that have been taken is that there have been instances, and these are now documented, where women have given up their children to abortion, and these babies have been dissected without the mother's permission. That is documented. All right. So this case, this scandal, which is what it is very similar to the scandal surrounding Acorn. All right, to the extent that there was a willful disobeying of procedures, regulations, requirements surrounding abortions, which the legitimacy of which we will not be able to determine on this call, okay? So in the first instance, I would argue that Planned Parenthood itself much like Acorn, should probably be shut down in its current form. And other elements of it may be reconstituted, right? There's an educational element to it, teaching young girls how not to get pregnant. There are a bunch of different elements. It's a very large, very expensive program. It makes a billion. But for sure, it's been delegitimized by this hard evidence. So that's step number one. There's no argument, no credible argument for not shutting this thing down and certainly eliminating all the parts of it, particularly with respect to the fact that these women did not sign a paper and did not give their permission to have the children dissected until that's all cleaned up. At a minimum, that has to be done immediately. And why it hasn't been done already is a little bit difficult for me to understand.
Well,
Okay.
any wrongdoing on the part of Planned Parenthood needs to be addressed. If it is in fact the case that some aborted fetuses were used for scientific purposes without the consent of the mother, that's a problem. If in fact the compensation that Planned Parenthood used was in excess of their costs for handling the material, that's a problem. That being said, the idea that an organization that exists far beyond just the purview of fetal samples be shut down for specific cases which, to the best of my knowledge, are not systemic, is a wild overreaction.
Okay.
Well, that's what happened to Acorn.
Well, at this point, we may read different sources, but it seems to me that at this point, most people believe that the Acorn scandal was wildly blown out of proportion, that what was reported as systemic wrongdoing was in fact just following regulations, and that this was just yet another example of scandal mongering on the parts of the public.
Well, I strongly disagree. Look, a government or publicly funded entity must rise to the highest possible ethical standard if it is going to take taxpayer money.
Well, taxpayer money has nothing to do with the abortions provided by Planned Parenthood.
Of course it does. Of course it does. It is subsidized by taxpayer money.
It simply is not. That is just simply untrue. It has been untrue for years, and this is something.
Planned Parenthood is federally funded. It gets other sources of money. It is federally funded.
Its abortion activities are firewalled off from its women's health activities, from its educational mandate, and from its contraception. There is no government money going into.
That's a distinction without a difference. That is a distinction without a difference.
How is
the
it
organization itself is federally funded?
The organization's efforts that you don't have any problem with are federally funded. None of that money goes towards the abortion side of things. That is a distinction with a difference.
I think not. The administration, of course, covers the entire organization. So to say that these pots of money are utterly distinct is from a systems point of view, from an organizational point of view, ridiculous. Okay, federal money is used to if you remove the federal money, Planned Parenthood could not operate. That's something.
It could not operate as it operates currently, but it would still be able to provide abortion because that funding comes from separate sources. What you would lose are the other side parts of Planned Parenthood. I mean, this is how the whole system has been designed.
Okay, well then here's another solution. Remove all the federal funding and let the other sources of money that Planned Parenthood raised continue.
Well, what I don't really understand is why, when considering that abortion is a fact of life in this country, the abortions are going to be performed. I mean, given that reality, wouldn't you rather that some good come of this?
No, hang on. They broke the law. All right? There are consequences for breaking the law. If I don't pay my taxes, I'm charged with a felony and I go to jail.
Well, what law are you referring to, Rick? Is that the selling of the body parts?
Well, yes, without permission of the money, without permission of the mothers, this is documented now. There's also evidence, of course, that they're overcharging for this activity. to me, that's probably a lesser
question. That's basically, would you have supported a similarly strong response to the financial businesses that were involved in creating the crisis? I mean, should the actions of employees within J.P. Morgan, for example, have been warranted shutting down the entire organization?
No, I would start with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Yes,
well,
and they were shut down and put into bankruptcy.
But let's talk about the actual question that I just asked, which is, should these individual mistakes, which do not seem to be systemic, warrant the government shutting down an entire company?
As we did with Acorn, okay, so we should do with Planned Parenthood. When there's a violation of this magnitude, everything stops. You shut the thing down, you reorganize, you clean it up, and then it can reconstitute its activity.
Okay, so that's, I mean,
in a reduced form.
Your essential response is that there should be a double standard, that nonprofit organizations that pursue causes that you don't agree with should be held to one standard, whereas...
No, when they break the law. When they break the law.
Did the London Whale not break the law? I mean, did the LIBOR manipulation not break the law?
Well, in those instances, they've been fined already. Huge fines. Billions and billions of dollars.
Of course. But you know what? You're not suggesting that we go in and shut down those entire organizations because of mistakes that were made by a few individuals.
The problem with fining Planned Parenthood is you're fining the taxpayer. Okay?
I think that some other kind of response may be more appropriate. That said, shutting down the entire organization is completely inconsistent with your views on similar situations.
It's what we did with Acorn. It is what we did with Acorn.
Well, Acorn is widely considered to have been a witch hunt at this point, so that's not a great response.
What do you mean a witch hunt? It too broke the law, all right?
Is what it was.
Well, it did break the law. It was rightly shut down. It has reconstituted itself in a different form, but it was rightly shut down.
You say that with a lot of confidence, but I highly doubt that you've looked at the developments since John McCain brought that up.
Well, in any case, I think the same approach should be taken with Planned Parenthood. In fact, it's overdue.
I think that abortions are going to happen no matter what. We might as well have people who are capable of making some good out of a very ugly situation, of handling these materials. And as long as they do so in compliance with the law, I think that it's that it is better than it would be otherwise to have them doing so.
Well, I have no further comments specifically on that matter. If we want to get into what happened during the financial crisis and how it is that the executives of Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae aren't in jail, that's a whole other conversation.
It is.
More than covered today.
Yeah, let's bring back the conversation to Planned Parenthood but let's go to one other question involved here. The legality of abortion after 25 weeks, 18 to 25 weeks, depending on the state, is I understand that reasoning after 25 weeks to make it against the law. And 7 states currently don't have such laws in place, so abortion can go right up until the actual birth, and including the birth, I guess, until it's actually the baby actually comes out. I think I think that anything after the 18 to 25 weeks, and I see the reasoning behind the new federal proposal of 20 weeks is quite rational, and I believe so. I'd like to ask you guys if you think that new federal law or a rule of 20 weeks and beyond to be impermissible for abortion. I mean, after all, 20 weeks is enough time to decide whether you would like an abortion for as a parent. What do you think, guys?
Chris, there are two people in my family and one of my closest friends who have had pregnancies where they were unaware of their pregnancy until well after 6 months. Now, two of those people carried the baby to term, and another one made an extremely difficult choice and had an abortion. These situations where you don't know do exist, and I don't think that anyone takes the decision to have an abortion after that 25-week period lightly. I understand that there may well be it's a hard thing to accept that the baby has been gestating that long and you're going to get rid of it. But I personally do not think that it's my place to be telling anyone what they should or shouldn't be doing in what is ultimately going to be one of the most difficult situations they're ever going to find themselves in their entire life. So,
well, isn't that the nature of all laws? Isn't that the nature of what the legislature does, is tell other people what to do with their lives?
Well,
and then after them, they give a lot of that to the regulators, who then tell everybody what to do in detail.
Well, in this situation, I see no tangible benefit to the greater public of imposing the law. I mean, granted, I understand that it is a difficult thing, and a horrible thing.
I can think one segment of the population it would benefit.
Well, that's if you believe that a fetus is a person. But I don't have.
After 20 weeks. So we're saying after 20 weeks.
20 weeks, no. After it is viable outside, yes. But after it can feel pain, no. I mean, but that's my personal opinion, and I don't believe I have the right to impose that personal opinion on anyone.
But wouldn't you say that a legislature could and should?
That's the issue of tolerance. You may have one opinion, but someone else may have another, and unless there is some scientific rationale behind it, it is not.
Well, the scientific rationale is that the baby can now.
Moral judgment.
We've been over the scientific rationale. It's pretty clear. It can now preemies can live outside the womb after 25 weeks.
Is that not just as much an arbitrary judgment? I mean, the question of when personhood begins is one of the great questions of philosophy.
Well, you have to make a decision somewhere. You have to draw a line somewhere, and the legislature and this bill proposes at 20 weeks. Now they could have proposed it at 21, 22. That's a matter for argument.
All of these categories are arbitrary, and I don't believe that when it comes to moral,
Remy,
impose arbitrary judgments.
But I think we're looking here not as whether it should be a specific 19, 20, or 21. I think the discussion here before us is that should it be at all? And we feel, I suspect Rick does too, that there should be something in place for all states saying that after a certain amount of time, whatever it comes out to be, there should be abortion should be illegal, because at some point, and we can approximate it, that the fetus develops enough characteristics to become human and can live outside the womb. What do you think?
There are some great philosophers who would argue that a baby doesn't become human until it develops a sense of itself, and that doesn't happen until after the baby is born. Now, granted, that is an extreme position, but I think you are basing this ban on people's liberties off of something that is ultimately debatable, and that for me is problematic.
Rick?
I think it's slightly different point of view on this than either of you. I think this is a matter of states' rights, honestly. There's nowhere in the Constitution that, abortion is mentioned or anything like it. And I don't think it's a federal matter. I know the federal government has intruded on this issue, but that doesn't make it right. I think it can issue guidelines to the states as to what it thinks, for scientific reasons, is the right end date by which an abortion can happen. But and I would agree it should be pushed as low as possible. And 20 or 25 weeks, I'm obviously more comfortable with a lower number. But I think if, New York State wants to make it 30 weeks and Tennessee wants to make it 20 weeks, so be it.
Okay. Any final comments, guys? We're just about up on our time.
No further comments were made.
Go ahead.
No, I think Rick's done.
Okay. I do believe that this sort of general debate has been operating about Planned Parenthood has been operating in a vacuum. It hasn't really been considering the good that comes from stem cell research and the fact that these abortions are going to be performed anyway. This should always be done in a way that is ethical, in a way that meets all of the standards that we as a society have decided are applicable. But I do believe that Planned Parenthood's involvement in these matters probably, almost certainly, creates more good than harm. And the other side of it is that I do believe that when we talk about questions of abortion, we need to be very, very mindful of our history as a tolerant nation.
Okay. Thanks guys for chiming in on this, and it's a pretty important subject. I want to thank everybody for participating. And that's it for this week's version of the Philosophical Angle. Have a good day.